Hello and welcome to the Celtic morning briefing for Monday, the 21st of November. I'm Aidan Macdonald and I'm joined by Sean and Tony, live from Australia. Guys, how are you?
Not bad, Aidan. Yourself? I'm not live from Australia, obviously.
No, of course, I could clarify. Sean is not live from
Unfortunately,
Australia.
I'm live from Invercleide as always, but there we go.
You wouldn't know I was live from Australia. It just looks like any other bog standard room. I don't know, is it good day, good night, or well, probably good night when I am, yeah, but one of them. But we're getting there, yeah.
Just before we get into it, obviously, just to draw your attention to the ticker down below, we have a Black Friday deal going right now. So it's currently £1 for 6 months in terms of access to the site. So that allows you to get podcasts like this, video specials like the one me and Tony did the other day. You've also got features, data analysis, scouting, all sorts of tactics stuff. So ticker down below, get yourself involved in that if you've not already subscribed. So, guys, we are obviously removed from the Sydney Super Cup now. So, as obviously the topic of this video says, the main lesson to take away from the tournament. Sean, how do you think it was overall in terms of both performances?
I think there was a definite dichotomy with the performances, wasn't there? I know the results ended up the same way because they get beat on penalties, but the performance was much better against Everton. I think you would agree. Never took chances again. I suppose is the mantra from everything apart from domestic football this season. But Tony, you mentioned to us that the chances that they passed up, if it was domestic football, you think they would score them. Yeah. So I think performance-wise, definitely better against Everton, which was obviously ironic because it was a better team, or supposedly the better team that they were playing against. The better performance came in, but the results never went their way. But I suppose by the same token, it isn't necessarily about the results, and that's why Postecoglou wasn't quite as annoyed after the Everton game as he was after the Sydney game, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, we bang on about it, and he bangs on about it as well. It's that performance versus results thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And he is quite happy when he gets a performance. Usually the results will follow. Just so happens he couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. But, when you went into social media, a lot of people, Aidan, were saying Celtic need to sign another striker. Do they? But it's one of them. It throws up a talker, doesn't it? That they're saying they need a more clinical hitman.
There we go, Beach Boys, straight in with you, Tony. Without stating the obvious, it says, without stating the obvious, we need a prolific number 9. And then goes on to talk about Welsh not being good enough to play as a rotation piece. We spent enough time, I think, talking about Stephen Welsh the other day, didn't we? But Beach Boy goes on to say Giakoumakis off penalties. Do you think he's off penalties now, Aidan? Do you think he's missed one too many now? Or?
Yeah, I think a wee break away from the penalty spot for Giakoumakis wouldn't be a bad thing. Me and Tony obviously discussed it yesterday, Sean, but we went into sort of detail about the recent penalty issues, if you want to call it that. Obviously, Giakoumakis missed one against Livingston, Juranovic missed against Real Madrid in the Bernabeu, and then the shootout, as much as it was a friendly. What's your thoughts on this sort of penalty thing now? And do you have a sort of new choice that should be the main penalty taker at the club?
They don't get many. That's the problem.
We did say that, didn't we? We kicked it with that.
But no, I don't know ultimately, because if you're taking, Juranovic. Remember last year when Giakoumakis missed his first one against Livingston, whether you thought at the time that Ange Postecoglou was simply backing one of his players, or whether you think he was being deadly serious that Giakoumakis was the penalty taker, first choice penalty taker, if everybody's on the park, he would be taking it over Juranovic, which is what he kind of said at that Livingston game. And that the penalties before that, Giakoumakis wasn't on. That's why Juranovic had taken them. Now, obviously, the Real Madrid one didn't really settle that issue because Giakoumakis wasn't on. Juranovic also missed, and Giakoumakis has missed again. And do you count it in a penalty shootout? You probably do count it in a penalty shootout, but he's missed again there. So, in terms of who's next up, I don't know, because automatically you would think, should the captain do it? But then Callum McGregor has missed a few as well. So, well, if he can hit a free kick like that against Real Madrid in the Bernabeu, why not do it with a penalty? But put it this way, they've got enough attacking talent there that they won't be short of comers to want to take them. I don't know if it's quite boys' club level where you have the penalty shootout competition before the start of the season and that decides who takes it. But if they have, then they'll have a third choice, I suppose, that will step up next time. But we'll see. He might actually double down. He might just say, no, you can take it until you score. But I don't know.
Aidan, you said Juranovic was still your man for the penalties, didn't you?
Yeah, just for when he's on the field, obviously, it becomes a different discussion if he's off. But if he's on the pitch, I would still have him because he has scored 5 out of the last 6. I know that's going right back into last season because, as Sean mentioned, Celtic haven't had a lot of penalties this year. But in terms of maybe like a second option, that is something they probably need to think about because you've seen that him and Ralston are getting rotated in and out quite a lot. So I think I'd probably agree with Tony's shout, and we touched on it a wee bit yesterday. I think Jota, just purely based off his sort of technical ability from other set pieces.
Gary McDowell saying Abada or Jota, Aidan. Do you think Abada? Or is that another issue where he's not necessarily on as often as some of the rest of them? Or?
Yeah, that probably would be something to consider, but his penalty was an absolute belter, to be fair. The one taking that shootout, he rifled it right in. But yeah, he's another one that's kind of in and out of the team quite a lot, so I don't think you could rely on him always being the number one taker, but it's definitely something they need to think about, I would say, over this sort of international period.
Tony, I'll bring that one to you. Alfie says, what's Celtic's problem with penalties? But he's not talking about scoring them necessarily. He's asking about Joe Hart and not saving them. Do you think that's fair, or is it just it's always against the odds are always against the keeper in that situation anyway?
Me and Aidan touched on it on Sunday, and I spoke about my father ran football teams, and he always told his goalkeepers to watch the ball and just watch the ball, and you might not save it because, as you say, the odds are stacked against you, but you could go the right way. And I've got a feeling that Joe Hart's a 50-50 guy. He'll pick a side.
I think
more often than not, he's picking the wrong side. So you're, and then the first penalty on Sunday, I don't think he even moved, did he? It was just slotted away. So, and I'm not blaming goalkeepers per se, but Craig Gordon didn't have a good record either at saving penalties for Celtic. So some goalkeepers, it's just not their thing. They just get nowhere near it. But I think if you're a goalkeeper, surely, I don't know anything about goalkeeping to be fair, but if you watch the ball, you should be able to go the right way. You're no save it, because if it's hit struck well and hard, you've no chance. But see, that's just deciding I'm going to pick a side, and I think you're lessening your own chances of success. And Hart strikes me as a guy who just says, right, okay, I'm picking right or left, and I'll go.
Because seeing a penalty shootout against players that you're never really facing, or it's just a friendly, that kind of thing. I think there probably will be an element of that, picking a side and just going for it. But at the same time, by the same token, if it was a competitive game, I would be expecting the keeper to have done his research to the extent that he roughly knows what side people usually go and base it on that kind of thing. With Hart in general, the perception of his kind of personality in terms of the kind of style that he brings to goalkeeping, even when he was at his peak, there was an element of gambling to it. He obviously he made I don't mean just with penalties, just in general, but he made see the big spread save that he does. That became his kind of trademark when he was with Man City and stuff. There's an element of gambling to the way that he comes out and does that as well, which a lot of the time works, to be honest. In penalties, I don't know if it's maybe just that part of his personality coming through, and he maybe does just decide I'm going that way. But I wouldn't be too critical of him for it in a penalty shootout against players that he's not going to see. See, domestically, I would expect stuff on a water bottle. I'd expect research, I'd expect all that kind of stuff. But and in Europe as well. But I don't know. I think there's always. I kind of feel for keepers in a penalty shootout because you're damned if you do and glorified if you do and damned if you don't. And in terms of sticking down the middle, if that penalty goes down the middle, he looks smart. He looks as if he psyched him out there. But I don't think he's ever been the same since that Pirlo penalty in the Euros.
That's probably true. But as I say, every goalkeeper has their own philosophy and thoughts when they're dealing with penalties, Aidan. Some goalkeepers are good at it. Some can psych out opponents. Some are not so good at it. That's fair enough. again, go back to a goalkeeper's not a favourite in a penalty shootout, not in a penalty at all. And I always blame whoever the penalty taker is. I don't think footballers should really miss penalties. It's a free shot at goal, and you should get it right. You should be able to get it right. And see, the odds are heavily stacked against the goalkeeper. Every now and again, they'll pull off wonder saves. So I'm with you, Sean. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. But what I do expect, certainly domestically, is to do homework, and that's and I think that if they know what way or aside a particular penalty kick taker chooses, then they should be going the right way. I'm not saying they should save it, but they should be at least being spot on. But this being sent the wrong way and constantly being sent the wrong way, I don't know. It just smacks. That to me smacks of gambling. Just pick the side.
With penalties, Aidan, it's like, I agree with Tony, right? See everything in a vacuum. Theoretically, a professional footballer given a free shot from 12 yards with time to think about it should be able to stick that away every time, right? But pressure does weird things to people, doesn't it? So I always go to the basketball thing. They get free throws, and there's not even anybody standing in their way or anything, and you'll see people in moments that's highly pressurised that usually will sink it. They'll sink themselves. They'll just the pressure will get to them, and that same thing happens with penalty shootouts. You see it. It's almost as if see the camera technique some films do, where it's kind of tunnel vision. It's almost like that, but you don't see anything else, and then you see people go to pieces. Now it shouldn't happen in a friendly tournament, but ultimately, some people don't like that spotlight, and I suppose that can apply to keepers as well. I'm not saying that's what it is with Hart, but just to touch on your players should score it thing, Tony. I agree with you, but obviously the pressure on some people.
Yeah.
You can see with some players just like across the game that there is quite a pressurised element, and even during the friendly, that was obviously something that got to them. But particularly Yakimakis' one, I think that's still travelled, to be honest. I think Beach Boys mentioned yesterday that went through his front window, which
I was surprised the way he hit his penalty, because you remember, Tony, I think I brought it up last week or the other week there when he missed the Livingston penalty. When he missed the first Livingston penalty, I had kind of spent 3-4 hours or whatever it was going through every penalty he'd taken as a professional, watching the clips and stuff, and it was always the same type of run-up, and he never really blitters it. Usually places it. I was annoyed when he tried to place it bottom left again the other time, because bottom left was just somewhere he didn't score penalties. He tried to put it bottom left and he wouldn't score. Every other place that he puts it, he was scoring. I thought it was a kind of point of principle, as if he was thinking maybe the keeper. This is not the Everton one, obviously. This is the Livingston ones I'm talking about. As if he thought the keeper's done his research. He knows I don't score from bottom left, so he'll think I'm not going bottom left, so I'll go bottom left. That kind of thing. But I was surprised he kind of chose the way that he chose it against Everton, because it just wasn't really his kind of style. So I don't know if that's because he's missed a couple or not.
Yeah, possibly. I think I don't know if what kind of run up he did, or maybe changed his mind halfway up stuff. Because it just seemed to me that he just got it all wrong, didn't he?
Yeah, no, it wasn't a great penalty at all. But just in terms of like the Australian trip, obviously the results weren't probably what the manager would be wanting. First performance was quite disappointing, as he mentioned in his kind of post-match press yesterday. He felt a lot better about the game against Everton. But overall, would you say that the trip was a success for the club in terms of what they wanted to achieve? Obviously, a lot of it was, a bit of a PR exercise. Did you say it was successful on that front?
I think the PR exercise has worked, and Celtic have been, around the world, and the club's been portrayed in the best possible light. And also, let's not forget, there's the financial element to this. There's reports saying that the club could earn up something up to £6 million. And that's colossal money for Celtic, because you earn, what, 2 or 3 million for winning the title. So it's almost, whatever it is, it's double or triple what you get for winning the Scottish Premiership title. So Celtic can't turn down these lucrative opportunities to make money on these commercial trips. And as I say, that's from that point of view, commercially, it's been a success. I think Ange would have wanted the team to perform in both matches. And again, it's a brilliant showcase for the supporters, who have been portrayed in the best possible light in another part of the world. And it's all it's just all adds to the feel-good factor at Celtic at the minute. And Ange was very enthusiastic about it, and he was asked about the kind of where's the next world to conquer, and I think the word Japan was thrown at him, and he didn't rule that out. So, I asked him the question that the club are starting to think like a big club, explore commercial entities and revenues and markets, and that's all you can ask for Celtic at this minute in time, to act like a big club in everything that they do. And I think that was what part of that was about too, acting like a big club, portraying yourself in another part of the world, showcasing what you've got. Yeah, they could have played better against Sydney, played really well against Everton, were unlucky not to win the game. But when you do these things, results aren't important per se, but the manager would like to have, I suppose he would love to have won the Everton match, and he saw his disappointment, he heard his disappointment after the Sydney game. So, but I mean, these things are worthwhile, both commercially and, it kept the players ticking over. They've now got a small layoff, haven't they? They've gone on holiday, I believe, but it's still kept them fresh, for another week or so, 10 days after the break for the season. So it's been worthwhile exercising that game, because players like Carl Starfelt get valuable game time, Rocco Vata, Bosun Law, guys like that who are pushing. So for those kind of, for that exercise, it's been worthwhile leading on many fronts that way, I think.
They got a wee break now, in it, and then Portugal to play Stade Rennes, is that right?
Yeah.
Which I think will be behind closed doors, that game. But listen, everything Tony said there is correct for me. Commercially, it made sense for the club, as it will make sense for the club to go to Japan next summer, if indeed that is where they decide to go. Now, at the time that was being kind of talked about as a potential next destination, I wrote an article, I think I wrote a newsletter about it actually, just kind of saying that it's a no-brainer. I think everybody could see that was probably the logical next step, given the profile of Ange himself over there, but also obviously Kyogo, Hatate, Maeda, Ideguchi, potentially even Kobayashi at that point if he's here as well. It makes sense, but with any trip, whether it's Australia or Japan, but especially the long haul ones like that, for me it's about the logistics, because you can't prioritise commercial activity over the actual preparing for the playing side of things. Now, I think the way that the Australia trip is going to be perceived will depend on how they start again when they come back in December the 17th. I think the Ange Postecoglou's made sure they've treated it not just as a commercial venture, but that kind of mid-season, pre-season that Tony's been calling it. I think that is the correct way to treat it, because you're in the middle of a season. There's no getting away for that. This wasn't a pre-season, even though there's a certain amount of treating it as a pre-season. With the Japan thing, if it comes to bear fruit, if it bears fruit, that they do go next summer, as long as it's not a repeat of 2006, 2007, Tony, and I don't think it would be, because that was just insane. Do you remember it? The schedule going to Japan after the start of the season, 2 games into the season or something. Then they went to Japan, lost their games, get absolutely trounced, and then come back, and it just did not make sense what they'd done. So I think it's a different time, different regime at the club and all that. I don't think for a minute they would make that mistake. But this calendar that they're playing in at the moment, because of the Winter World Cup and stuff, the league season and the cup obviously doesn't end until a wee bit later. So I think if they are going to Japan, it's going to be quite hectic to get all that scheduled in enough time where it doesn't affect the end of the season break or the start of the next season properly getting underway, that kind of thing. I know I'm getting off topic here with Japan, but I think it does it does chime with it, because it's such a long haul flight at different parts of the year. But aye.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be a surprise to see the club go to Japan. When exactly they would do that remains to be seen. But I think given obviously the amount of Japanese players at the club, you mentioned there, Sean, the potential signing of Kobayashi as well. That's definitely something they would be wanting to explore. But obviously, just to sort of finish up on the Australia stuff, Tony's obviously over there. Sean is not there. I should clarify again. But
no, although Aidan, where is it here? Somebody's saying.
I saw that there,
here it's there. Peter King, well, must be Sean's turn to go to Japan then if Tony was in Australia.
We having some kind of kendo fight off, Sean, or kabaddi fight off to decide that. Nah, that's okay. You're the boss, man. You can decide these things.
Gary McDowell's coming in, Tony, saying, are you going travelling now? We can't confirm you're not going travelling because actually you're staying to take in the final Sydney Super Cup game. Obviously, it's no Celtic, no party, but you'll still be there. Still be there to take in the occasion and complete the journey. So keep your eyes for the TikToks and keep your eyes for the features, the diaries, and all that stuff, Tony, innit?
Yes, indeed. I think it's one of them. I've written another diary piece. I did do that. I'm trying to convince myself what I've done, what I haven't done, but I've certainly done that. So there's another one of them coming up, isn't there, Aidan?
Yep.
Please tell me I did that.
I can confirm.
That's good. But yeah, I'll be going to the Everton Western Sydney Wanderers game just to complete the whole thing. But I'm looking forward to that. That'll be different.
Tony, you're getting Australia. I'm getting Japan, but Aidan's getting up to the Highlands apparently. So there we go.
So logical next step.
History of short straw draws, Aidan. There you go. But no, excellent. But yeah, I'm not going travelling. No, I'm going to finish what I started, Shawnee.
Yep.
Rock, scissors, paper, sausage.
Have you had a highlight so far, Tony, from your time in Australia?
Oh God, that's a good one. Do you know what? I think just actually being here and then going and looking and seeing the Sydney Opera House and the Harbour Bridge, and just actually looking and saying, no, because you're that used to seeing it on TV, and it's just a world that you think you always say put that in the bucket list, and some people don't make it, but that's just sort of just stand there and take in all the kind of marvellous. But I know it's a very touristic thing to do, but it's quite spectacular, you know what I mean? But to come here on the back of being with Celtic and to walk around there and see all sorts of Celtic tops and, you know, lots of people and, you know, sporting the colours of Celtic and, you know, kind of taking over, that's been the highlight, just sort of thinking, wow, and the feeling that they have for Ange over here is just incredible. They love him, you know, but and they genuinely believe that he's a star in the making, and that Celtic are lucky to have him. They value him so highly, and they're just interested in his journey. And you know, a guy came up to me when I was in the Acker Stadium, and he chapped the press box window, and he showed me a picture on his phone, and it was of the wardrobe. And he ran back to his seat, and I was killing myself laughing, right? And I said, I can't leave it like that. So I walked out and I said to him, and I said, how you doing? And he says, oh, I know you're busy. Sorry, he says, Tony, I've just became a Celtic supporter since Ange became the manager. He says, but I'm a fanatic now. He's like, I devour it. He says, I watch the Celtic Way every morning. I read everything on the web. And he was there. He was there himself. He says, I just can't be without it now. He said, I don't know why I never had it in my life up until now. And I think the guy was about in his 40s, you know. And I was just like, wow. And he says, that just cause of Ange. And he went, yeah, just cause of Ange. He says, but just cause of this. And he pointed. And he says, the fans are magic. He says, he's brilliant, you know. And he says, and he was like going to book a trip to Scotland to come and see them at Celtic Park. And I just thought, wow, that kind of says it all, doesn't it? You know, to chap the window and show you a picture of a wardrobe and run away laughing. I mean, I was like, I have to go out and speak to him, you know. And I think he was worried that he was going to get him into trouble or something. And so I came out the press box and walked down the seats. He was sitting in the aisle, and I just spent him. And then he said to me, right, go and do your work. You know, he said to me, go and do your work. And I was like, okay then. It's just like, all right, that's me told. But stuff like that, Aidan, I mean, you can't make that up, can you? I mean, that's madness.
No, that is a brilliant story, and I guess that just shows we're obviously well aware of the impact I'm just having at Celtic, but it kind of shows the sort of, you know, worldwide impact he's having at the club. There was a comment there, I'm just trying to find it. I think it was asking for your kind of thoughts, Tony, on the quality of Australian football overall, just obviously based off the sort of small sample size you've seen in the Sydney FC game. I know we had praised the Sydney FC after that game, said they looked quite good. Do you have any sort of maybe general thoughts that you didn't mention that day?
I think that's the guy who was asking you about the wardrobe, Tony. That's my spy. Make sure you're there at the game and all that.
Indeed. I thought Sydney FC played really, really well. But someone said to Ange after the game, they asked him, does that say a lot about the Australian League and the teams? And Ange said, you can't really measure a team in a one-off game. The measure of a team is over the course of the season and the way they finish in the league. And I thought that was a fair point that he made. He said, because Celtic were off it, weren't they? If Celtic are on it, what happens in that game, you don't know, do you? But he said if Sydney play like that every week of the season, will they win the league? And he said probably. He said, but they'll probably not play like that every other week in the league. He says it's hard to have any kind of measure in a one-off game like that. But what I did say was that I was impressed by the way they played. They weren't. They were more attack-minded than Everton, weren't they?
Aye, they wouldn't be hard right enough, but
it wouldn't be hard. And Everton have got players that you instantly recognise. But that's what I mean. So the philosophy into it, and I think by the end, Sydney were worthy of their win, weren't they? The Celtic were off it, and the manager was disappointed. Celtic came into the second half when they brought on, like Sir Riley, Haksabanovic, Jota, so there was a marked improvement in Celtic's performance, but again, laid a bit of siege to the goal, couldn't score. So, but I thought Sydney were great, and people were saying, Sydney could hold their own in the Scottish League, and whilst that might be well, it's never going to happen. So, I get those comparisons and stuff, and I understand them, but you're basing it on the merits of one kind of 90-minute match. But I thought they played very, very well. And if that's the kind of general standard of the teams in the league, then, they gave a great account of themselves, and, they're a credit to the A-League. I'm not an aficionado of the A-League, but they didn't say they're still out not to play Celtic. They came and played and had a go, and they won, and they scored. The second goal in particular was a terrific finish. A sensational goal, just in its execution. So you have to applaud that. So Andrew Galea comes in and says no relegation helps from the A-League. Okay, right for that. So these things are things that help in your understanding of where Australian or the A-League football's at. But I wasn't unimpressed. Let's put it that way. You're there focusing on Celtic, but you're obviously playing an opposition team and you take stock of them. But I thought they were worth it, I have to say, especially for the first half performance, because I thought they were very good the first half.
Tony, there's a couple of comments coming in off the back of you saying, apart from the spy part, obviously, about the guy saying to you, Ange has converted him to being a Celtic fan. Was it Andrew Galea? Yep, Mark Viduka did it for him. That's what grabbed him. That's a lot of people will have that kind of story, that one person that just kind of flipped the switch and got them interested, and then they end up fans long after the person's gone and all that. But
he was as Aussie as they come, and he was just saying, I'm a fanatic now. He says, I can't do without it. And I just thought that's amazing. And as Aidan said there, and the manager touched on it as well, that you can't deny the fact that there's a global appeal with Celtic. There is a massive worldwide fan base. It's true. I've just witnessed it for myself, and also lots of people were coming from different parts of Australia. Guys came from Brisbane and Perth, other places, New South Wales and all that kind of stuff, and they were travelling from all over the country just to be here in Sydney. To see Celtic play in the flesh, and that was their big thing. That was their stick. They were just desperate to see Celtic in the flesh, because they got up at all sorts of ridiculous times in the morning, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Sometimes said European games that some of the supporters got up at 6 in the morning and then watch the game and then go to their work.
Ange Postecoglou's mentioned that himself.
Imagine that.
Different things, But remember that? Do you remember that, Tony? Marco and then Mark?
Marco Viduka.
A lot of confusion.
Was he not Marco Viduka, and then Fergus McCann went to fetch him back after he'd gone AWOL, and he came back as Mark. I'm thinking Fergus has done some kind of mind trick on him there. You know what I mean? You'll now be known as Mark. You're never a Celtic player. Come on, that kind of thing. But
into my eyes, but not
exactly. It was it was certainly one of those because Marco Fergus went to get him, and he came back, Mark, and he'd signed the contract basically. So.
Before we go, we were swithering whether to bother mentioning it, but there's a few comments anyway. But you'll have noticed before we come on air that Celtic's closest title rivals guys have sacked their manager. Van Bronckhorst has left Ibrox by all accounts. Any thoughts on that? Or he's pretty much the same boat as me, that Celtic already got a lead at the top, and all that really matters is what Celtic do at that point. It doesn't really matter who gets installed across in Ibrox.
I couldn't agree more with that, Sean. I think if you get distracted or allow yourself to get distracted, then complacency might creep in. But I think you go back to Ange Postecoglou. Celtic ran their own race last season when they were 6 behind, 7 behind.
Mm-hmm.
They'll run the same race despite the fact that they're 9 in front. He'll just not allow Celtic to be distracted from their main goal. Celtic's closest title rivals, Rangers, can bring in who they want. It doesn't affect what Celtic do, does it? Or it shouldn't.
No, it shouldn't, and it won't. I don't think. I think Celtic's got too much of a clear identity now, Aidan, for anything that happens across the city to actually knock anything. Really, would you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you guys. Celtic just need to focus on themselves, which is exactly what the manager said since he came in.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be what they do. I don't think really what happens at Rangers will be playing into the players or the managers thinking too much. Obviously, it is a change, but I mean, there's still going to be another 4 weeks or so without domestic football. So there's going to be quite a period of time before we actually see whoever the new manager is coming in for them. But yeah, I don't think that will change any of the thinking, and Celtic will just sort of kick on as they are.
Just if you're interested, by the way, the kind of 3 or 4 favourites for that job are Sean Dyche, Michael Beale, Ralph Hasenhüttl, and Steven Gerrard. So could you imagine Dyche versus Ange Postecoglou is a real crack clash of styles there, isn't it? But
Dyche ball.
Aye, I think the 3 of us are pretty much in agreement about that. Fair enough, acknowledge he's gone, but realistically, it's very much a run your own race. 9 points clear, and it is all about what Celtic do. It's not really relevant until they're your next opponents, really.
I'm seeing a couple of comments as well, Sean, about Muscat, Kevin Muscat.
Yep, that would be a kind of Ange blueprint, I suppose, if they went that route. But
but it might be interesting to see the 2 Aussies go head to head if Rangers were to go down that route, having watched on what Ange has achieved since he came in. It's you don't know, but as I say, it certainly wouldn't affect the manager or what Celtic are doing. Could be Ange Kevin Muscat, Battle of Australia. Indeed.
Listen, you mentioned, Tony, just to tie it back into the Sydney Super Cup here, you mentioned when you were asked and talking about the commercial stuff, it's all money. There's Celtic have come out of this or will have come out of this break in the black. It's not cheap to sack managers and sack backroom staff and all that. So from that aspect, just remember that part as well, is what I would say.
Yeah, of course. And it's and as Aidan said there, there's got a wee window of opportunity of time to bring somebody in, but there's no guarantee that they're going to hit the ground running, is there?
No.
And there's enough of it. There's a big gap there, and you hope for that, what they call it, that new manager bounce, but they don't have games to get that new manager bounce. So whoever's coming in will have like training sessions and stuff, and you'll know until that first game you went back.
Brown Warrior were a great shout as well. If you want to think on it in this way, then you could almost say the Sydney Super Cup associated fees and stuff like that Celtic will bring in from it has essentially allowed them to write off the fee for either Jota or Cameron Carter-Vickers. That makes it sound even more worth it, doesn't it, Tony?
Which is why you take these on board. You go on these trips because that's a fantastic way of looking at it. You recoup what you shelled out for one of those players. So and by doing that and by showcasing your team and the fans and everything that's good about the club in different parts of the world. That's the spin-off that you get from it, isn't it? That there is a lucrative spin-off from it and a commercial entity to it. That's not why you do it, but these things are important to a club like Celtic, who do not have the riches associated with La Liga and the English Premier League. So you have to take advantage of these things when you're offered it, and as long as you said the logistics of it are fine, and the logistics of it this time worked out perfectly for Celtic.
Yeah, I suppose, Aidan, before you wrap it up, just a reminder that the first Celtic player will be in action tonight. Is that right? At the World Cup, Cameron Carter-Vickers, USA against Wales, 7 o'clock my time, Tony. I'm not sure what time that is at your time.
6 o'clock in the morning, my
6
time.
o'clock in the morning,
I'll be watching.
Will you be getting up? Will you be getting up to watch?
I'm getting up for that, because I see that my dark horse. Something
of course, you'll be wanting them to get beat then, will you? You'll be wanting them to get beat.
I've always been a kind of... I like Wales only because I always thought that they were perennial kind of underdogs and underachievers, and when they started to achieve, I thought it was great. And it was always seemed to be Scotland that put them out, major tournaments. But I think
wouldn't mind seeing Wales do well. I wouldn't mind seeing them do well. If only for friend of the show, Johnny Owen, he'll be
exactly, and
absolutely buzzing.
Johnny as well, yeah, exactly. I want to keep him his good side, but no, if Carter-Vickers plays, I want him to play well, and I'd love to see him on that stage, get game time, and just to have a look at him and show what he's shown for Celtic since he came in. And I think all the Celtic supporters want their representatives to, if they play well and show up and enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
It's but yeah, that's the England are on at midnight. Wales are on at 6 in the morning, and then there's somebody else on.
And between that is Senegal versus
that's right,
the Netherlands. So Jeremy Frimpong could be on in that game if you're wanting an ex-Celt to watch.
That could be
Celtic a wee bit of money if they get further as well. So that
could be siesta time before the Wales game. Sean, you know what I mean? Goodness knows, the sleeping patterns have been ridiculous. But hey, that's just the way it is. But get your red and black on for tomorrow night, Tony.
Is that Western Sydney Wanderers, is it?
And then Australia play, don't they, on Wednesday?
Australia play France in their opener, is it, tomorrow night? Yeah, tomorrow night our time, obviously, so tomorrow morning.
So it'll be tomorrow morning. Wednesday morning or something my time. So
there's 4 games on Tuesday. It's one of those days. One of those days. Messi's playing Saudi Arabia. Argentina, they're calling it, not Messi.
You too.
You feel one of the World Cup predictions is basically Messi FC, but
I know.
You too. Take the easy option, picking Argentina to win the World Cup.
I had to remind Aidan. I had to get Tony to resubmit his because I think he thought it was 1986. Player of the tournament, Diego Armando Maradona. Diego Armando Maradona.
Golden boot. Diego Armando, exactly. Yeah, indeed. I would just have done that ad nauseam for every World Cup. But hey, there you have it. I know you want to see the Celtic contingent of players that are there. If they play, you want to see them show up well, give a good account of themselves, and But I'm sorry, Big Cameron. I have lent my support to Wales, so.
Must admit, Charlie McGarvey's he's channeling the inner thoughts of the vast majority, I think, every time there's an international break, whether it's a World Cup or not. And that is first and foremost, don't get injured when you're away.
Well, he'll not get injured if he doesn't play, so there could be that element too.
Can't argue with the fact.
Not only are you back in Wales, but you're getting them dropped for the team as well.
I'm not dropping them from the team. I'm just, if you're going to think about it purely selfishly, then yeah, if they don't play, they'll not get injured. So there's no guarantee that they'll not get injured if they don't play. People get injuries in training and stuff. But I also witnessed the other day, or was it this morning, that Martin Boyle's out for Australia, which is a big blow for them.
Yeah, which was annoying for me because I've got him on the bench, my fantasy football team. But anyway, shocker.
Yeah, and that's a huge blow for Australia because Mark Bosnich, friend of the programme, Sean, he was on the telly covering the Ecuador match last night, and he was saying that news filtered through, and they said they were quite a huge blow, and he showed clips of Graham Arnold talking about him and stuff. So I was kind of like, oh, that's a shame, you know.
I mean, I actually thought Martin Boyle might have been in with a shot for the Scotland squad before he declared for Australia, but
Yeah.
they get in first. Speaking of Martin Boyle, do you know who the other three? I think there's only 3 other Scottish-born players at the World Cup.
Okay, Jason Cummings,
Yep. Aye.
Jackson Irvine, one of them.
No.
He's not Scottish born, no. Okay. Right. Surely somebody will be playing for Canada as well. Yeah.
Oh, Witherspoon.
Yes, David Witherspoon. Aye.
Yeah,
There's one more. It's quite hard, this one, but he's got a brother that doesn't play for the same country.
Oh, is it Harry Suter?
That is Harry Suter. Aye, well done. The young gun's got it.
Superb knowledge.
Yeah.
Did you see Andrew's comment, Aidan, before you said that?
No, I think Aidan
actually didn't, you know. Very convenient, but I actually didn't. So yeah, no, that's been really good today, guys. Obviously, just before we wrap this up, just to point you again to the ticker down below. It's £1 for 6 months, full access to the website, part of a Black Friday deal. You know, you get podcasts like this, features, Tony's diary, which has been excellent, from down under. Interviews. Tony's going to have a couple of interviews coming over the next sort of period of time as well. So point of content there and get yourself involved if you've not already subscribed. So thanks for that, Sean. Cheers for today.
No worries.
Thanks, Tony.
He's sounding Australian now, Sean. Now, Harry's my yay.
No drama.
No drama. Yeah, no drama. Oh, dear. Indeed, plenty of, I think you'll think. But no problem. Cheers. Enjoyed that.
Cheers to all the people that were commenting as well. Thanks very much, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.